I'm very excited to be talking to the director and writers of Lemon. But want to jump into it?
Let's jump in.
Let's jump in. So you grew up in Panama, and then you moved to Brooklyn, and you can feel the heat in Lemon. I was wondering if your experience growing up in those two locations shaped your creative process, and particularly the way that the heat just radiates in that film in a good way.
Radiating heat, thank you. Yes, I grew up in Panama and I moved to New York when I was a teenager, and it definitely is very much a part of how I see things or how I hear things and smell things. And I'd say in terms of the film, the part of the movie that's the Caribbean family is very much taken from my family, much like the Jews are taken from Brett's Jews. My blacks, Brett's Jews. So yeah, and I guess temperature, totally. Yeah, I think we run hot. We both run hot. Hot Jews, hot blacks.
Yeah.
Hot.
It's a matter of a healthy sweat versus an unhealthy sweat.
Well, I think that's clear in the palate too, because when you're with the family at the barbecue, it's very saturated and super yellow and warm and cozy, and your people are a little more desaturated and beige. I'm saying in the world of the movie.
Gray.
In the world of the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, not in general.
No, in general, it's a very saturated group in life. Yeah, in the film, that's sort of, I would say if you looked at those together, it's saturated, desaturated, yellow, beige.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Of course. No, great. I agreed with the choices from the
Okay,
get-go
cool,
of yours.
cool.
Not that you were looking for my
And Brett's
agreement.
from Chicago.
Yeah.
One person's been there.
Yeah, I'm from there. But people always think that I'm from here. Because when I came
Because of
here,
your bad attitude.
well, people have a bad attitude in Chicago, but yeah, I when I came here, it made much more sense to me than Chicago did.
That's how I feel about Connecticut, because you can't walk quickly in Connecticut. They just
That would drive me
it's
fucking
awful.
crazy.
Yeah. There are more polite people in New York than there are on the University of Hartford campus. You can't do anything. But did Chicago shape your writing process for this film at all?
I guess that I always carry a little bit of the Second City guys and then the Steppenwolf people with me. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is a very, in my acting and in my writing, there is this a very visceral approach and experimental approach, and sort of throwing things against, and an improvisational approach, even though it's writing. But I think that there's something very much to it that is throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks, and then if it doesn't, then picking yourself back up. Whereas, she very much led the writing process, though. This is very much in her voice, and I was more of she just would sit down and it would all be figured out already. So I'd be like, oh, great. And I, loved everything that she said, and it was her idea. So, but we share a lot of similar sensibilities. We like danger. We like words. We like things to be stylized, and believe that through absurdity and surrealism, you can get into people's subconsciouses in a more effective way at times, and actually have an audience relate to the material in a deeper way at times than if you're just putting something relatable in a naturalistic way in front of them.
The film has a very beautiful relationship with language and the way that it plays out in different communities, particularly with the white characters. There's this repetition of certain words, and you get the sense that the character that they're talking to still doesn't understand what they're talking about, whereas there's this really beautiful flow and fluidity between the characters of color. Would you mind talking about that?
Yes, I agree. But I think, I don't know that it was so pointed in our writing. We were not deciding that brown characters sounded a certain way or white characters sounded a certain way. I think we were very much writing from a place of feelings. The film is about a lot of feelings, and those feelings are stress and worry and anxiety and fear of failure. And so how those feelings are manifesting through our protagonist, Isaac, there is, like Brett said, this sort of danger and violence to how he is processing his plateau. And the other characters, I mean, I could go down the line, but some feel more comfortable. And I guess some of the brown characters just happen to be a little more comfortable with maybe where they are. But for instance, like Judy Greer's character, her progression from when we meet her to the end, Judy Greer is the blind girlfriend. And when we meet her, for instance, even just in her palette, she's wearing all black and her hair is very upsetting. And then as she gets farther away from Isaac, her hair gets more beautiful. And by the end of the film, she's wearing a dress that's covered in roses and peonies. And so she really sort of steps into herself the farther away she gets from him, because he's incredibly toxic. I think that a lot of just negativity.
He kills birds. Who kills birds?
I mean, he didn't kill them. They died.
We don't know how. I mean, yeah, I think just from being around me, I guess.
Yeah, your vibe killed them. They couldn't. They were like, not here, not today. So yeah, I feel we were writing the characters very much from, I would say each character is sort of they're playing out ideas. Michael Cera's character, and also I should say that one of the things we kind of talked about in putting, once we had written the film and sort of discussed what it kind of read like for us, or what the feeling would be of the movie after, was I always thought that the film in presentation felt like Isaac was retelling the story. He was retelling the events. And so it's so much about how he sees and how he perceives people. So he sees, for instance, Michael's character as Michael Cera is the acting protege, the male acting protege. And so he sees him as, he admires him. And when he meets him, to him, he's incredibly sexy. And as he also starts to leave him, or this idea of being left by him or being broken up by him, how he sees him changes, because then he goes from being something incredibly warm and welcoming to being dangerous and unwelcome.
And in that scene when, there's two things about their final scene together that I want to talk about. There's one where he's talking about being a knife thrower, and there's this really brilliant blocking and framing that you did, where he's throwing the knife or pretending to throw the knife at Michael Cera, but you see this disembodied hand just entering and exiting the frame. And there's so many great visual gags in the film. I was wondering, what was your process of framing and storyboarding those things?
So I shot listed pretty early. We shot our movie in 18 days, so there wasn't a great deal of room to not arrive prepared. And at a film at our budget and with that time, it's just for me, and I also, it's clear the movie's not naturalistic. So I'm not leaning into naturalism. So wanting it to feel so pointed and so theatrical, we had to come to the table with all of it sort of done. And so I shot listed pretty aggressively beforehand. And also what was great about that is that, not everything I wanted happened for a plethora of reasons. And so to come with this really strong vocabulary of what the thing is that I wanted it to look like and feel like, and then being in a space where things could change. But for that scene in particular, what I wanted is, Isaac spray paints Michael's car. From the moment that he gets this job that tells Brett he's going to be left, and that now suddenly he believes Michael thinks that he's better than him. He is now a suppressive person. He's an SP. And that's also like Scientology language, but I love it. It's so good. I'm not a Scientologist.
We just joined it.
No, I mean, we wouldn't say it if we did. But
I know, I'm just
also, I just
kidding.
think it's like so the right language. Like, he's an SP. And so he's like, you're an SP, you're problematic, like, you gotta go. And so, like, from the spray paint to him throwing the cake in his face, like, from before he throws the cake, from the bear hug, I wanted there to be this feeling of like when he walks in the house, you're like, maybe he's going to murder him. And it should feel like he's going to kill him. And so like setting up this energy. And I think our film feels like surprising enough or unusual enough that like if someone was murdered, it wouldn't be surprising. Like it has the vibe of like killing is coming. And
Yeah, it's like Buster Keaton meets Taxi Driver.
David Lynch meets Issa Rae.
Great, I'll take it. And so, yeah, it just, I wanted it to feel really dangerous and kind of violent. And I thought in that moment, like he's talking about this fantasy of playing in the circus, and Michael's character is so good at like knocking the wind out of Brett's sails with very little. You know, he's like traveled and sort of well-read and is like really lofty, and he feels like a lot of jealousy. And so in him building up this fantasy that he has as a kid, and then he just tells him like that life is not as romantic as it seems. And that really hurts. And then he's like, well, what can I do to one-up you? Oh, I can, you know, get really close to your face with this knife. But then it goes on for too long. So it's like, it goes on for just long enough that it's like too crazy, you know?
And then he says that he's not the good kind of crazy. He's the bad kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And this takes place sort of in the theater world, and you both come from theater. You study theater at NYU. You mentioned Steppenwolf. And
North Carolina School.
Yeah,
of
I was in a conservatory at North Carolina School of the Arts as well.
did you have experiences with strange theater teachers that are like weirdly abusive, I guess, emotionally abusive?
Just a handful.
Yeah, should I go first,
those
or do you
places.
want to?
No, I'm looking to you because you should go first.
Oh,
I think mine's
I-
a good second story. Yours is a good first.
Yeah, an acting teacher my freshman year of school told
the
me
accent.
that he was like, "You are the superficial actor. You are my nemesis." Said that in front of the whole class. I definitely think that was one of the experiences where I got acid reflux that contributed to it, I thought. And and then you, what happened to you at NYU?
I had a freshman year teacher who I was acting in this scene. I studied directing and design at NYU, but I also had to take acting classes. And in this acting class, I forget what the scene was, but I'm acting with my friend Mary, and we're like, we could have been better students, I guess, like, and now that I'm thinking about it. But like, we were freshmen, we didn't know. We weren't thinking about how much it cost. We were like, whatever, man, like, it's cool. And we were acting in this scene, and our teacher, I remember, because I was sort of like looking out to the audience, sort of in the way that I'm looking out now. And he stood up, because everyone's sitting, and he stands up, and I kept acting, and he starts walking towards the stage, and he starts crying, and he says, "I feel I've disappointed you. I feel I failed you." And he doesn't look at me, and he turns to the class. It's just hysterical crying. And then he leaves, and then he never came back. And we had like a new acting teacher a couple days later, and I was like, and so there was a joke in my class that I broke our acting teacher with how good my acting was. So anyways, that's that.
Right, I mean, didn't supposedly Stella Adler used to just be like, "Do it like this," and would just perform it in the class. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, we're a crazy bunch, right?
Yeah, I think we
So-
were really like sort of but when I look back on that, even though it felt really bad in that moment, I think that all of that stuff, like when you think about having, like, I went to this school for 4 years to study performance and design and directing, and I was in the company of people who I don't know should have been teaching. I mean, some, yes, some were amazing, and others I'm like, I think you got to work on your own stuff. Like, I don't know if you should be here. And yeah, I feel like, but all of that is a part of it. Even the bad teachers were a part of it, you know? So we were definitely looking at that time in both of our lives, but with praise. I mean, I loved it. And we were also like really turned on by like all that actor talk that just like is just so juicy, but it's too much.
I had a teacher once say that there were 3 people who controlled the universe, who were amongst us, who didn't reveal who they were, and just walked amongst us. But I seem to be the only person of my class who remembers her saying that. So I'm wondering if maybe I was having some sort of breakdown at the time, which is totally possible. But I think that it's great, though, too, because it's great for even to have an insane teacher as an actor, because they teach you the lesson of high stakes and intensity. So, which is essential in acting, right? Yeah. So.
And intensity and an interesting aspect of physicality is a big part of your role as Isaac, because he seems to exist sort of inside himself and inside his own world, and yet there are moments where he just kind of explodes physically. And I'm wondering, like, how did you create this character?
Well, she
how
helped
did you
me
two both
a great
create
deal. Well,
this
we were
character?
sitting on the
Sorry.
couch and it was like 2 months before we started shooting. And I had always pictured it differently, playing the character closer to myself physically, as did Michael Cera, actually. And she looked at me and she said, "I don't want to see any of your physicality in this character." So we did a lot of walking rehearsals in our living room. We're together. And then there was this, this like hip holding here.
Oh, we're standing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm basically standing in this chair. And
If you put
and
your
I
legs
felt
up.
like it was very much, his tightness, the holding of the hip. He's like this tornado inside that is being very, very loosely held together with Scotch tape. And at any moment, that tape could break and he could explode everywhere. So that's what the hand was. And she's very into gesture. She also said I was not allowed to raise my eyebrows or breathe with my mouth open, which just in life is a good thing.
True.
Keeps me from getting too many like deep lines up here and keeps me from looking stupid with my mouth being open as I breathe.
I furrow my eyebrows too much.
Yeah.
Just like I'm always annoying.
You look good. Your forehead looks good.
You look great.
Yeah, forehead looks
you.
good.
Y'all look
very
amazing.
smooth skin.
Thank you.
And,
Yes, skin looks good.
Thank
yeah,
you.
really
You're gonna
good.
look good for like a really long time. You're in the right group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
You
that.
both are. Me, no.
But
But I will look
We
good.
could
But
be 50 and it's
No
great.
one would ever
and
know.
I'm like, I'm 55. Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
But
I'm
when I'm
actually
50, people will
36.
still like be
not
I'll be like
55.
a thing. I'll be like a fetish.
I'm sorry?
Never mind.
I don't understand.
like a daddy.
I don't want to examine it. This
daddy
is about
or a
acting.
bear?
I'd love to be a daddy.
Is
This
he
is
a
about a-
bear
I
or
think
a
he's a
cat?
gopher.
Oh, okay.
I'm a gopher.
In terms of daddy, bear, gopher. That's what we were having a conversation by
Yes.
ourselves.
Are those 3 similar
I think they're
categories?
different, actually, but we
Isn't
were
it
just wondering-
bear, otter,
Otter.
bear and otter, right?
Otter.
I suppose so.
I'm
You feel
between
he's
a
more
bear and
bear?
an otter. I'm a
I
botter.
feel like he's becoming. He's coming into his beariness.
Oh, he's bear to
Yeah.
otter to bear.
He may be a cub.
Cub. No, I
Like
don't
a
think he's small
cub,
enough for
right.
a cub. I think he's otter to bear.
Okay.
Okay, we
Yeah.
gotta get off of this.
So you
Because
have
we
a
need to
very beautiful,
be-
assured sense of
Professional.
style and aesthetic. And you came from being a stylist, working on different film sets. So 2 questions. You worked on the Notorious film about Notorious B.I.G., about Biggie Smalls. Like, what kind of research did you have to do for that? And then what informed the costumes and aesthetic for Lemon?
Yes, I used to be a stylist. Like I said, I went to NYU for directing and design. And when I graduated from theater school, maybe some people in the room can identify with this. I didn't get to work in theater as soon as I graduated, and I was confused by that because it was so expensive, and I thought I paid for this job now, and that felt bad. So my job after school was I worked a little bit I did production design and I did costume design, and I ended up sort of, I think, flourishing more in the wardrobe space. So I worked commercially and in music video and a little bit of film, and I also did fashion for a while when I was in New York. When I moved to LA, did not do fashion because no one cares there about that. So I worked on Notorious. I was second unit, which I'm sure people in the room know what that means, but I was not the main person. They did reshoots. And so for the reshoots, I did like 5 days on that, and it was very much working under the umbrella of what was already built. So it was not what I essentially I felt like I offered nothing because someone else had already set the look, and it was essentially kind of a repetition of what was already there, playing in the palette that was set, playing in the energy that was set. And I feel like that's my funniest credit that I did that. But and as far as design, yeah, design really matters to me. Production design, costume design, lighting. I feel the goal for me is if the writing isn't doing it, or the edit isn't doing it, and I would say even music to this effect, like I want for those things to be able to telegraph like where we are or where we're going, to sort of color, feeling, and not about manipulation, but that if you were to watch the movie and you couldn't hear anything, that you would still have a sense of where we were going or where we'd come from. That each of those photos and that movement should be able to tell the story, almost like in choreography or dance, like the blocking should be able to tell you where people are mentally, emotionally, and what have you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank
beautiful.
you so much. I've talked about this a little bit.
I'm particularly enamored of the way that the characters of color are photographed, because there's a very long history about the production of film in particular, and the way that it was built to shoot white people. And this film feels almost like it's rectifying that, if I may say.
Oh, thank you.
What was your approach to cinematography?
I was referencing there were a handful of photographers whose work I was really excited by, and some of their lighting I wanted to repeat. There was this book by Nan Golden. I think it's I'll Be Your Mirror. Am I wrong about that? It is, right?
Yep.
So in I'll Be Your Mirror, there was a lot of lighting in that I really loved, that we kind of like forced into the first act of the film. And I'd say the first act is the stuff that's mostly about career, and then the second act would be the Seder, and then the third act is it starts with this sort of like masturbation into the end of the film. And so that first act was referencing a lot of these Nan Golden photographs from I'll Be Your Mirror. And then in the third act, there were these photos by two women. Beth Lesser had done these really great pictures covering Jamaican dance hall in the late 70s and early 80s in Jamaica. And then there were also a couple of Deanna Lawson photos. She's newer, went to Yale. Anyways, for sort of the Caribbean stuff. And then there's one photo that really sticks out for me, which is this Carrie Mae Weems photo called Women Playing Solitaire. And when Nia Long is playing solitaire and Brett calls her, it's like a sort of a reference to this photo that, for me, the significance of it was whenever I saw that photo, it was one of the first times I had like noticed that it was like a photo. It felt like a photo of someone that I knew, or of myself, or someone from my family. And so it had just been her work has been very important to me, and I wanted to be able to homage it in the film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love Carrie Mae Weems, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so in your will, you're going to die.
Oh, okay.
This took a dark
Maybe
turn.
not.
No, we will.
But
We'll
in your
figure something
will,
out.
you
No,
want
we're
to
gonna die.
program a film festival in your honor, in your memory.
Okay.
What films would you program?
You go first. I know.
Like the Avengers? No. I think. Well,
Everything from
I
the
would program.
Marvel universe.
Yeah, just so rich. No.
How many films are we picking?
3.
Okay, great. I
How
got
many?
mine.
Okay, so I have 3.
I can go. I'll go. I know mine already.
Okay.
Because in case you say them, I want to have them first. All That Jazz. Thank you, guys. Hollywood Shuffle. And I feel like I shouldn't say that because that's a little. It's just like it's like a bad vibe.
Oh no, it's fine.
I should say it. And Annie Hall. I know. I was like, I love that movie so much.
We separate the artist from his work.
In this moment. Oh, God. What are your 3, Brett?
My 3, I would say A Night at the Opera, the Marx Brothers film, which
Someone said good.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It would be a toss up between that and Duck Soup. Those are tied. But A Night at the Opera was what made me want to do this when I was 6 years old. And then I would say The Producers, the original, not the film of the musical. And I would, no, I know, I'm joking. Well, I'm not joking about it being the original film. But I would say that those are my 2 favorite acting performances of all time, Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder in that movie. I think it's like watching those performances is like breathing highly concentrated, pure oxygen. And then my 3rd, wow, that's hard. I mean, I could easily say Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles, but another filmmaker, I could easily say Annie Hall as well. But my third, I think I would say Goodfellas.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really, really just love that movie, and I think Joe Pesci's performance in that movie is an incredibly influential performance on me, because he's so terrifying and so funny. He's so funny, and yeah, I think maybe those 3 films.
I see a little bit in the performance of the funny but terrifying but funny.
Yeah, it's something I like to do. But I don't try to make anything terrifying. I mean, I get to play really flawed characters when I get to work, and I like to really why hold back on how flawed they are. But I'm usually surprised when people tell me that my characters are awful people. Because I'm not approaching it from that way. I mean, to me, Isaac is lonely. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah,
To me, Isaac is lonely and desperate and jealous and angry, and he feels like he should be in another place than he is. And so we all know this. You can't play I'm a bad person. So it's surprising to me when people say that about me. Yeah.
But there's
About him, my characters.
There's a great amount of empathy in the film, which is one of its hallmarks. But I think that's all the time we have, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Brett Gelman. Thank you so much, Janicza Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.